Hey there, Econ 1B students. Today I'm going to go over the answers to the homework problems in Assignment 2. This was looking at the market forces of supply and demand. And so we'll get started with assignment with problem 1. Question 1 says, consider the market for minivans. For each of the following events, identify whether supply or demand is affected and which determinant of supply or demand is affected. So we're going to go through and look at, for the market for minivans, these 5 things. People have more children, striking workers raise the price of steel, new machinery increases, developed to automate the production of minivans, the price of sports utility vehicles goes up, and stock market crash lowers wealth. So we have to figure out, is it a supply side or a demand side effect? And which determinant out of our determinants of supply and our determinants of demand is it going to be? And real quick, you want to remember the determinants of demand are things that shift the demand curve, not price and quantity, but those shift factors. So it's going to be things like change in income, change in the number of buyers, change in the price of a complement or a substitute, tastes and preferences, and expectations. Our determinants of supply are going to be on the supply side, shifters of the supply curve, right? Things that are not price and quantity, but still affect supply and can shift that curve in or out. So those are going to be things like the price of inputs, the technology used to make the good, the number of sellers, and then expectations. So number 1, people have more children. How does that affect the market for minivans? Well, first of all, is it a supply side or a demand side effect? It doesn't really affect the supply of minivans, but I'd say people having more children is going to affect demand because people with big families and lots of children tend to demand minivans. Is it a change in tastes and preferences or a change in the number of buyers? I could say either, right? I'd usually say more people having children means there are going to be more people in that market for minivans, so it's going to be an increase in the number of buyers. But if you said tastes and preferences, that's acceptable too. Number 2, or the next problem, is striking steel workers raise the price of steel. Is that a demand side effect or a supply side effect? Well, steel doesn't really affect how many cars I want to buy, but it might affect how expensive it is to make cars, right? If steel is an input in cars, that's going to be a supply side effect. In fact, it's going to be a change in the input prices, right? If steel is an input in minivans, then rising prices of steel is going to make making minivans more expensive, right? So far, so good, hopefully. The next one is new machinery. Engineers develop a new automated machinery for the production of minivans. Demand side or supply side? That one's easy. We're talking about production of minivans. That's supply side. It's going to be supply side, and it's going to be a change in technology, right? It's going to be an increase in technology that makes it cheaper and easier to produce minivans. What about the price of sports utility vehicles? Are sports utility vehicles an input in minivans? No. They are a related good, though. I would consider them a substitute good, right? You're deciding between buying a minivan or an SUV. If sports utility vehicles get more expensive, that makes minivans relatively more affordable. So that's going to be a demand side effect. And it's going to be the price of a substitute. It's going to make minivans more affordable relative to SUVs, and it's going to increase demand. If you wrote price of a related good, that's totally fine too. Last one, stock market crash decreases wealth for everyone. Is that demand side or supply side? It's pretty easy. This is a super common thing for economists to do. When they talk about a stock market crash, they usually say, oh, well, it's a decrease in wealth, and that just means that people are going to have lower income. So that's going to be a demand side effect, and it's going to be a change in income. So if people get poorer, they're going to buy less of everything, meaning they're going to definitely buy fewer minivans. Make sense? The next problem, problem number 2, looks at the effect of ketchup on hot dogs, looking at the market for hot dogs. So if ketchup is a complement for hot dogs, an increase in the price of hot dogs will have what effect on the market for hot dogs and what effect on the market for ketchup? So let's go ahead and take a look. So let's draw the market for both. Make some space here to do that. So you don't have to draw the markets. I just think it's useful. So if we're thinking that ketchup is a complement for hot dogs, we want to see how a change in the price of hot dogs affects hot dogs and affects ketchup. So this is our market for hot dogs. And we have our demand for hot dogs here. And we said that what is the effect on an increase, the effect of an increase in the price of hot dogs on the market for hot dogs? So what would that look like? That would look like, hey, here's the current price and quantity for hot dogs, and I'm going to increase that price. That's just going to cause movement along the curve for the market for hot dogs, right? We're going to see the price of hot dogs go up and the quantity demanded of hot dogs go down. What about that same effect on the market for ketchup? Well, it depends on how ketchup and hot dogs are related. In our example, we're saying that ketchup and hot dogs are related goods. We're saying that ketchup and hot dogs go together. Not for everyone, but that's my thing. I like ketchup on my hot dogs. So if I like ketchup on my hot dogs and now hot dogs have gotten more expensive, that's going to mean that the experience of having ketchup and hot dogs together has gotten more expensive. So that means that I'm going to have less ketchup and fewer hot dogs. I'm going to go ahead and see that demand for hot dogs shift in, meaning that relative to our initial equilibrium, we're going to see a lower price and a lower quantity. So it's just a question of the difference between quantity demanded and demand. A change in the price of hot dogs results in a change in the quantity demanded of hot dogs. However, if hot dogs and ketchup are complements, a change in the price of hot dogs is going to be a change in demand for ketchup all across the board. Cool? The next problem says, graph the market for blueberries with an equilibrium price equal to $4 and an equilibrium quantity equal to 50. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And again, you can do these on the worksheet. You can do them with a stylus on your computer. You can do them with Word, drawing lines and inserting them, or you can just draw them on paper and upload the picture. Either, whatever works is fine with me, just so long as I can tell what you've got going on. So I want to go ahead and put my quantity down here and my price and label my market for blueberries. And then I've got my supply curve and my demand curve. And I don't know much about this market. What I do know is my equilibrium, which occurs at a price of $4 and a quantity of 50. So now let's see what happens next. Graph the effect of a new report on blueberries that indicates that blueberries can prevent cancer. What would be the effect on the equilibrium, price, and quantity? So my first thing is blueberries prevent cancer. Is that going to be a demand side effect or a supply side effect? Well, I think it's going to make blueberries more popular. I think that's going to be a demand side effect. It's going to be a change in tastes and preferences, right? It's going to make blueberries more popular because people are going to say, oh, wow, blueberries are great. I don't want cancer. I'll eat more blueberries. So we'll see the demand curve for blueberries shift out to the right. That's also going to mean we have a higher equilibrium quantity, maybe 55, maybe 100, maybe 51, and some higher equilibrium price. You can pick a price, you can not pick a price, totally up to you. The important thing here is that the news that blueberries prevent cancer is a demand determinant. It's going to shift demand out to the right, raising the quantity and price in equilibrium. Cool? Next part says, suppose early rains have made blueberry crops less successful. Graph the effect and describe the changes in equilibrium, quantity, and price. So now we have rains make blueberries go bad, right? The crop is less than it would have been normally. That's not going to be a demand side effect. That's going to be a supply side effect, right? That's going to mean that there are fewer blueberries at every given price. That's going to shift that supply curve in to the left. And that means that we're going to see the equilibrium quantity decrease and the equilibrium price increase. Now, if you are looking from your original equilibrium to the new equilibrium with the old demand and the new supply, or the new demand and the new supply, you still see that effect of whether we're moving from here to here or from here to here, we're seeing the quantity go down and the price go up. And that's really all we're looking at, is the direction of those changes, okay? And remember, when we talked about this in the slides, remember that when we move both the demand and the supply curve, we can have indeterminate effects. So regardless of what happened, we know that the quantity is going to go down and the price is going to go up. We don't know if it's going to be higher than this other price. That's not what's important. What's just important is getting a sense of the change generally. So whether we're moving from here to here and we see quantity and price go up, or moving from here to here and we're seeing quantity go down and price go up, that's what we're trying to get a sense of, is what is the new equilibrium. So finding that equilibrium between supply and demand. Hopefully that makes sense. The next problem, number 4, says to look at the demand for 4 people interested in buying books. So we have Chris, Trish, Dennis, and Jana, and they all want to buy books. And we've gone through this before, right? We've looked at this a couple of different times in class and on activities. But let's go ahead and add them up together. And for that, I'm going to switch to the dot cam. So here I've got my best ever scratch paper. And I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing I want to do is, it says, okay, using the individual demands, derive the market demand for books. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to derive that market demand. And remember, deriving the market demand just means adding up the individual demands at every price. So at $5, I have Chris wants 6 books, Trish wants 4, Dennis wants 5, and Jana wants 4. So that means I'm going to have 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15, plus 4 is 19. So the market demand for books at $5 is 19. At $10, Chris demands 5, Trish demands 3, Dennis demands 4, Jana demands 3. So that gives me a market demand of 16. At $15, 4 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2 gives me 11. At $20, 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And then finally at $25, Chris wants 2 books, Trish doesn't want any, Dennis wants 1, and Jana wants 0, so that gives me 3 books. Then the question says, if the market is willing to supply 4 books at $5, 8 books at $10, 11 books at $15, 14 books at $20, and 20 at $25, where is the equilibrium? I always think it's easier to draw that or write that market supply next to my market demand so I can see how they line up. So it says the market is willing to supply 4 books at $5, so that's 4. 8 books at $10, 11 books at $15, and 14 books at $20, and 20 books at $25. So now I have my market demand and my market supply. And if I want to, like the question asks, find my equilibrium price and quantity, I can find it now by just seeing where market demand is equal to market supply, right? That's going to be here at a price of $15. But I can also find it by graphing those market demand and market supply curves. So let's do that. So I've got my y-axis for price and my x-axis for quantity. And I know my price is going to go from 0 to $25. So let's say this is 5, 10, 15, 20, $25. And then I'm going to have about the same scale down here where I go from 3 to 20 in supply. So I'm going to say this is 5, 10, 15, and 20. I'm going to do 25 just in case. And then I want to go ahead and graph my market demand. So my market demand says that at $5, I'll demand 19 books. So $5 and 19 books. It's going to be like right about there. At $10, the market demands 16 books. So it's going to be right about there. At $15, the market's going to demand 11 books. And at $20, the market demands 7 books. And at $25, the market only demands 3 books. So that gives me a demand curve that looks generally something like that. I also have my supply curve that says that at $5, the market only supplies 4 books. At $10, the market supplies 8 books. At $15, the market supplies 11 books. At $20, the market supplies 14 books. And at $25, the market is willing and able to supply 15 books. So that's going to look something like that. Such a straight line, right? Okay, so there's my supply curve. Now I can see, just like I saw before, that my equilibrium occurs at that price of $15, right? At $15, I have an equilibrium where price is set so that market demand is equal to market supply. Awesome? Heck yeah. Now that's it. That's that problem, right? That's my equilibrium. So I want to make sure to say, okay, this is my equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. And I'm done. Cool? Awesome sauce. The next problem asks us to sum both market demand and market supply. And again, this is super straightforward. We're going to go through and look at the individual quantity supplied and demanded for each of our people in our markets. And then we're going to go ahead and add them up to get the market supply and market demand. So here I have the individual demand schedules for the 4 people in the market for soda. We have Helix, we have John, we have Jenna, and we have Milo. Jenna wants 6 sodas at $0, 5 at $1, 4 at $2, 3 at $3, 2 at $4, 1 at $5, and then Milo has a little bit less demand than Jenna and won't demand any at $4 or $5. So we go through and we add all of those up to get our market demand. So let's do that first. At a price of 0, Helix wants 5 sodas, Jenna wants 6, John wants 6, Milo wants 4. That gives us a total market demand of 21 at $0. Add up at $1 and we get market demand of 16. At $2, market demand is 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 2 is 12. At $3, it's 2 plus 2 is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then at $4, Jenna wants 2, John wants 1, Helix wants 1, so that's 4, and then at $5 only Jenna wants a soda. The individual firms also have their own individual quantities supplied, so each firm has a different quantity they are willing and able to supply to the market at each price. And it obeys the law of supply, which means as prices go up, firms supply more goods and services to the market, in this case soda. At $0, no one wants to supply any soda to the market, but at $1, each firm will supply 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. At $2, Coke and Pepsi will each supply 2. Dr. Pepper only supplies 1. That means we have a market quantity supplied of 5. At $3, 3 plus 3 plus 2 gives us a market quantity supplied of 8. $4, we get 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. And then at $5, we have the highest quantity supplied, which is 14. And again, we can look and determine what the equilibrium is, right? We can see the equilibrium right here before we even graph it by looking at when market demand is falling and market supply is rising, when are they equal? Well, here's market quantity supplied of 8, here's market quantity demanded of 8. That happens at $3, and this happens at $3. So that's going to be our equilibrium. The next thing we want to do is graph market supply and demand. So y-axis, x-axis, quantity, price. We're looking at prices of $1, $2, $3, $4, and $5. And then quantities going from 0 as the lowest and 21 as the highest. I'm going to go here and go 5, 10, 15, 20. Now I want to go ahead and graph my market demand curve. Looking at the quantity demanded at 5, it's going to be just 1 soda. At 4, it's going to be 4 sodas, almost all the way to 5. At 3, it's going to be 8 sodas. At $2, it's going to be 12 sodas. And at $1, it's going to be 16 sodas. And if the price is 0, it's going to be 21 sodas. So that gives me this pretty straight looking demand curve that I can go ahead, and I'm going to be a fancy person today and get my protractor out and kind of draw that straight line. Oh, it's not as straight as I wanted it to be. That's okay. And that'll be my demand curve. Then I'm going to go ahead and get my supply curve graphed. So at a price of 0, the market supplies 0. At a price of $1, the market supplies 3 sodas. At a price of $2, the market supplies 5 sodas. At a price of $3, the market supplies 8 sodas. $4, the market is willing and able to supply 11 sodas. And at $5, the market is willing and able to supply 14 sodas. So that gives me my supply curve. Almost a straight line. And again, I can determine the equilibrium price and quantity, which is going to be $3 and 8 sodas. So far, so good. The next and last part of this says to describe the scenario that would shift the supply curve out. So what would be something that would shift the supply curve out to the right, and what would be the overall effect given on price and quantity supplied? So we want to just remember what are those things that will shift the supply curve. So we have our determinants of supply are technology, input prices, number of sellers, and expectations. We want to shift the supply curve out, not quite even, but out so that more is supplied at every price, which is going to mean that prices go down and quantity supplied goes up, or quantity demanded goes up. And so if we want that outward shift, we're going to need either an increase in the technology associated with making sodas, a decrease in the input prices of carbonated water or caramel coloring, something that's in all these sodas, an increase in the number of sellers, so maybe it's Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and Mountain Dew, or some kind of change in expectations, some increase in expectations that makes producers want to produce more. Any answer that gets you there works. Sound good? So let me know what questions you have. Otherwise, have a beautiful weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.